Hey all my crafty people, and welcome back to the Lone Star Crafter. I'm Rachel, and today I am doing another machine embroidery video. Today we're going to be talking about how to do embroidery on faux fur. And this tutorial is going to work for other types of fabric that have what's called a nap. So like faux fur or like terry cloth, like towels. Anything that has like little pieces or parts of the fabric that come up, you're going to be able to use this tutorial to learn how to do machine embroidery. So I'm going to show y'all how I prep the fabric. I did have to prep it a little bit so it doesn't spill, get faux fur all over the place. I show you how I hoop it, what materials I use to hoop it, and then also how I do positioning, because this particular project is actually going to be a cuff for a Christmas stocking. So a little bit of Christmas in July on this, but again, you can use this tutorial for any faux fur project or anything that has a nap, like a terry cloth towel. So let's go ahead and move on over to the embroidery machine. And I am also going to show you, I downloaded this font, this embroidery font online. So I'm going to show you on the Janome Skyline S9 how to calibrate your USB, and then how to bring over, once you've calibrated it, downloaded your designs off the internet, how you pull those designs off the USB and onto the embroidery machine, and then how to position it so it looks perfect. All right, y'all, let's get into it. All right, y'all, so I'm here at the sewing machine. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our fabric, because you can see with faux fur, the little tufts are just gonna like spill all over the place if we don't prep it correctly. So I've already cut my fabric down to the size I need for the cuff. If you're wanting to know that, I am gonna have another video on how to make this Christmas stocking from start to finish, so go ahead and check that out. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and choose a zigzag stitch of sorts. This is also known as like an overlock stitch, and the reason I'm choosing this one is because you can see it's more than just a zigzag, it's more like a triangle style, and what that's going to do is really encase the edge of the fabric, and it's going to really help tack down all those little loose fibers and furs that want to just spill all over the place. And I'm using the more generic one. There's a couple of different style overlock stitches that you can use on a sewing machine. One requires a special foot, and I didn't feel like changing my foot, so that's the only reason why I didn't choose that one. And then also with this faux fur, the back of it's like that faux leather kind of feel, and so it's really sticky, and it has a tendency to want to stick on your needle plate as you're sewing. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing a piece of batting. It's just what was closest to me, and I know that's going to slip through, underneath the needle very well. You could use anything. You can use like a piece of paper. Tissue paper would work really well. If you had a piece of like scrap tearaway, you could use that. And I want to make sure that the fur is facing me as I sew it, because I don't want that fur to get stuck in my feed docks and get jammed up. So for this part, really just kind of take your time, follow along on the edge. As you can see, I have my walking foot on my machine. That's going to help, pull that fabric through evenly, and make it a pretty easy time. Now, as I go through, as I'm holding the fabric and guiding it through, I am kind of patting it down a little bit and everything like that. But as you can see, it goes through pretty easily. Get to the end, do a little back stitch, cut it, and then you're good to go. Alright, y'all, so our fabric is all prepped and ready to go. To get this hooped, the supplies that you're gonna need, I'm using a medium tearaway backing. You could also use a lightweight since this fabric is pretty thick. You could also use like a sticky back. I'm just using a plain tearaway with a spray adhesive and then a water soluble topper. And so with the sticky back tearaway backing, it's not as strong as a hold, so especially for a thicker fabric like this faux fur, it's not my first choice. If you have it on hand, you could definitely use it, but I prefer the spray adhesive. The sulky is really nice. It gives a nice strong hold, and then after a few hours, it's really easy to just get that backing off of the back of your project really easily. And so here now I'm just using the little notches on the horizontal and vertical side of the hoops. For the cuff, since it's going to be a cuff on a Christmas stocking, I just folded it on itself twice and then I line up the center of that fold, and that's how I know where I need to line it up. Now, if you want to go in depth on this, I'm going to be making a video on how to make a Christmas stocking from beginning to end. I just needed to do a separate video for the embroidery part because, as you can see, it's pretty time consuming. It needs its own little video to show you how to do this. But you can use this for any faux fur project, obviously, and so you just need to figure out your positioning. Alright, so then I just take my basting spray, I spray it right on the tearaway, and then I fold my fabric back over. I left about an inch on the edge of the fabric there. You can see at the edge of the embroidery hoop. And I just do both sides. I make sure it's nice and packed down, and then what I do is I make sure I brush my fur so that it's laying nice and flat right before I put my topper on. Now with the topper on the faux fur, you definitely want to make sure you don't use any glue, right? So don't use any glue or anything. Don't use like a heat press topper and use any heat on it. You're going to ruin your fur, especially since this is faux fur. It's very... Alright, so real quick I wanted to show y'all how to format a USB so that you can download embroidery designs from the internet. So just go to the wrench, which is your settings, scroll over one page and then it says format, click the USB and then hit OK. You want to make sure that your flash drive is blank, like there are no files on it when you do this, and you may have to click that format button a couple of times to get it to work. But then all you have to do is go to your computer and download those embroidery designs onto that flash drive. And then later I'll show you how to get them onto the machine. Alright, so real quick I wanted to show y'all, if you have a hard time figuring out the orientation, since we're doing lettering, we need it to face a certain way. For me, because I have my edging of my fabric on a certain side, it's hard to explain, but when you're doing the Christmas stocking, you would understand, because what's going to happen is the way that I sew it, see, I fold it, I place it in the stocking once the sides are already together, and then I flip it inside out on itself, so that way there's no raw edges on the top. And so I'm just demonstrating that real quick. What I did is I took a piece of binder paper and I wrote right side, wrong side, and then I folded it in half twice as if I was putting the cuff on. And then I put it inside the stocking as if I'm sewing the last piece on there. And then I flipped it inside out. And then what I did was I wrote the name that I'm going to embroider on that side. And that's just like a really quick, easy way to figure out your orientation for the lettering. Because if I were to embroider the word or the name facing the other way, then when I went to fold the cuff from inside the Christmas stocking to the outside, it would be upside down. Ask me how I know it, because I've done it before. So you just want to be really conscientious of how you need to orient your name that you're embroidering. Alright, so we're back at the embroidery machine, and I've plugged in the flash drive to the side of the machine, And I wanted to show y'all how to get your designs off the USB. So you're just going to go to the right hand side and click the little file folder with the arrow coming out of it. You're going to select the USB icon, and then you're just going to go through the folders and go to the letter that you need. Now, because this is not a built-in font, you do have to select the letters individually, and you're going to have to orient them the way that you want them. What I ended up having to do was decrease the size a little bit because they were pretty large. And then I would just line up all the letters using the different arrows and things like that. So what's nice about the arrows on the bottom is that you can kind of just like minutely move your letters over. And then one of the next things you want to do is you want to select this icon where it's a group of hearts with yellow surrounding it. What that's going to do is it's going to take each individual letter and it's just going to group them together. And then that way, if you need to move the whole name over to the left or the right, you're going to be able to do that without having to do each letter individually. So what I did was I did that first. I did save it to my machine. Just in case, 5 years of college taught me you should always save your work as you go. And so I just wanted to save that real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the positioning is correct. So what I'm going to do is put my hoop on the machine, and then I'm going to click the little positioning icon. I'm going to make sure that the word or the name is in the correct spot that I want it in. So that little center button right there, it automatically sends your arm around the embroidery area. So this is not the exact placement of the design necessarily, but it gives you a really great general idea of where it's going to be. And so for this, it was a little bit too low, so a little too far to the left. So all I had to do was go back in. I went ahead and hit my grouping icon, which is the hearts with the yellow box, and then I scooted the name over. And then what I ended up doing was just lining up the bottom of the letters with that center position line. And you can see there, I kept forgetting what I had to click to get out of it. Just click that group button again and it'll get you out of that screen. And so just go back to your main embroidery screen and click that positioning button again. And right about there, you can see I have about 2 inches, maybe a little less, to the right hand side, and that's going to be perfect for the cuff. And then when you click that next button, that creates a basting stitch around the embroidery design. So you can see I just hit start. When you click that, it just literally puts a rectangle or a square around the design that you're doing. And you want to do that for this particular project because I'm using faux fur, I don't want to glue my water soluble topper down, but I also don't want it shifting around on me as I'm embroidering. And so the basting stitch it's a great way to tack down that water soluble topper. It's also really good to kind of help with the tension of your embroidery stitches too, just because it creates a little bit more of a, taut surface for the stitches to lay on. And again, the reason why you want to have that water soluble topper on the fur is because if you didn't have that there, the embroidery stitches would just sink into the fur and it would actually make your design really difficult to see. So I did a couple of starter stitches. I clipped off the extra thread, and then we're just going to go ahead and let the machine do its job. Alright, so we've gotten the tearaway in the back off. I clipped all the jump stitches or the jump threads. I always turn off that setting on my machine to have it cut. It helps prevent a lot of the tangles and things like that can happen with machine embroidery. So I just go in and I trim them all off real quick. And then you can see with the topper, I'm not getting it wet. I'm just kind of taking my right thumb and holding it against the embroidery stitches and kind of slowly just like peeling up the rest of it. And you do want to be very careful with this part because it's very easy for the embroidery stitches to come loose. You can see that they're just satin stitches, so they just go back and forth left to right. And so it could be really easy for you to yank on that topper a little too hard because it is a plasticky material. It would be very easy to just kind of yank on it too hard and then you'd pull up all of your stitches. And I used a rayon thread, so it's even more delicate, so you do have to be careful. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some tweezers really quickly and use my tweezers to get into those little nooks and crannies. I'm going to try not to pull too much of the fur out as well. But you can see once that topper is stitched on, it sort of perforates the material, and it does make it pretty easy to just pull off without having to get your project wet. So I'm just going to go ahead and work on that. Alright y'all, we're all done embroidering on our faux fur. We've trimmed our extra stitch threads. We've picked off the topper and the backing, and she's all done. You can use this tutorial with any faux fur project or any project with a nap. And if you're wanting to know how to put the Christmas stocking together, make sure you subscribe to my channel and look out for that Christmas in July video where I show y'all how to put a Christmas stocking together. Alright, have a crafty day.